Jai Hind all, and I welcome you again to this fourth session where we'll be covering unit number 4 of Operations Management. The paper code is KMBN 205. So today I'll be taking you through supply chain management overview. We'll be talking more about the essential features of supply chain, the goals of supply chain, drivers of supply chain. Then we'll be coming to reverse supply chain, inbound and outbound logistic, Bullwhip Effect, and push and pull system. So let me start with the supply chain management as it's a process. It's a process of delivering a product from raw material to the consumer. It includes supply planning, product planning, demand planning, sales operations planning, and supply management. So it is actually, the main objective of supply chain is to monitor and to regulate the production, distribution, and shipment of product and services. And this can be done by companies with a very good and tight hold over internal inventories, like production and hold on distribution and internal productions and sales. So supply chain management can be defined here as the management of flow of product and services, as it is the chain of supply, right? So which it begins from the origin of products and it ends at the product's consumption to the consumer end. It also comprises the movement and storage of raw materials that are involved in work in progress, inventory, and also the fully furnished final goods. So here on a screen you can see a flow diagram of a supply chain, how it processed, how it flows. So there are suppliers, there are manufacturers, there are distributors, in between there are retailers, and finally the shoppers or the end users. So in this figure you can see the flow of goods and services and also the flow of information from the producer to the consumer. But this information flows from consumer to supplier as well. So there is a movement of these two, like product information and finances, from supplier to shoppers end, as well as from shoppers to supplier ends, right? The product information and finances, as well as the product, flows from shoppers to suppliers, right? So we'll talk in reverse supply chain, how product flows from shopper to supplier. So here this picture depicts the movement of product, right, from the producer to the manufacturer, who forwards it to the distributors for shipment, and the distributor in turn ships it to the wholesaler or retailer, who further distributes the product to various shops from where the customer can easily get the product. So supply chain management basically merges the supply and demand management, right? So it uses different strategies as well, and also the different approaches to view the entire chain and work efficient at each and every step involved in the chain. So you know that every unit that participate in this process must aim at minimizing the cost, right? Continuously we'll be talking about minimization of the cost, reduction of the waste, increasing and improving the entire performance. So the supply chain management aims also towards improvement or improving the long term performance, so while also creating value to its stakeholders and its customers. So this process can also minimize the rates by eradicating unnecessary expenses, unnecessary movements and handling. So here we need to note that supply chain management and supply chain event management, these are two different topics to consider. But yes, the supply chain event management consider the factors that may interrupt the flow of an effective supply chain. The possible scenarios are considered here, and accordingly solutions can be devised for this, right? So coming to the meaning and definition, different authors like Professor Douglas M. Lambert define supply chain management as the integration of business suppliers. Right? I take this panel. I'm highlighting these points, like it is an integration of business processes from the end user through the original supplier, and this is for the purpose to provide product and services and information that adds value. So the very purpose of supply chain management is to add value for the customers, right? So supply chain is a network of suppliers, manufacturers, assembly, distribution, and the logistic facilities that perform the function of procurement, number one, procurement of the material, transformation of those materials into intermediate, and finished products, and finally the distribution of these products to the ultimate customers, right? So, coming to the essential features of supply chain, what all are the important elements to make the supply chain more effective? First one is it is an integrated behavior. But why I'm saying it's an integrated behavior? Because you know that supply chain incorporates or it integrate the stakeholders from supplier to the customers. So in between there are major parties, like you have manufacturer, you have distributors, then retailers, and the ultimate customer. So it is a long chain. It is an integrated system of different elements here. Then it's mutually sharing information. Here it means that for effective SCM, mutually sharing information among channel members is very much required, and especially for planning and monitoring this entire process, right? Then it's mutually sharing channel risk and rewards. So there are different stakeholders in between, and effective SCM also requires mutually sharing channel risk and reward system that actually yield a competitive advantage. So risk and reward sharing should happen over the long term focus and cooperation among the supply chain members. Cooperation is another essential feature, like among channel members cooperation is very much required for effective SCM. Cooperation refers here to similar or complementary coordinated activities performed by a firm in a business relationship to produce superior mutual outcomes, or I must say a singular outcomes that are mutually expected over time. So this is how this entire channel works. That it focus on serving the customers. Rightly said that supply chain succeed if all the members of supply chain have the same goal and the same focus, that is serving the customer. So establishing the same goal and same focus among supply chain members is like a form of policy, right? Then it's an integration of processes. So the implementation of supply chain management needs the integration of different processes, like from sourcing to manufacturing and to distribution across the entire supply chain. Here this integration can be accomplished through cross functional terms, like in plant, supplier, personnel, and then third party service providers are there. Finally the partners, how it is how this feature is essential. The partners to build and maintain long term relationship. Here means the successful relationship aims to integrate the channel policy. One, to avoid the redundancy. Another is then to overlap while seeking a level of cooperation that allow participants to be more effective at lower cost levels. So policy integration is possible if there are compatible cultures and that management techniques among the channel members here. So it is focusing on building long-term relationship, building and maintaining the long-term relationship. So this is how it is works. So if I say why how supply chain is important, I must say that a positive or a negative impact on a supply chain resounds throughout the entire business processes. So there are two core areas to assess the impact on. Number one is customer happiness, what we call it as a customer satisfaction, and second one is ROI, that is return on investment. So like for example, I say there is an equation where a happy customer is equals to a happy business, or happy business is equals to a higher performance. So for a smooth return process, effective supply chain is very much required. So now coming to the advantages of supply chain, how supply chain is in this era of globalization where companies compete to provide the best quality products to the customers and then to satisfy all their needs. How supply chain management works here, or it plays a very important role. Like all the companies are highly dependent on effective supply chain process. So let's take a look at the major advantages of supply chain. Here are some key benefits, like it develops better relationship, customer relationship and service, as you have a effective and efficient supply chain management from supplier source of material to the end users. Then it creates better delivery mechanism for product and service in demand with minimum delay, or by reducing these delays, or improvises productivity and business functions is another advantage of supply chain management. It also minimizes warehouse and transportation cost, and also the direct and indirect cost associated with the manufacturing of the product and services. It assists in achieving shipping of right products to the right place at the right time. Right? It enhances inventory management as well by supporting the successful execution of just-in-time stock models by reducing the unnecessary, piling of stock or wastages of materials. It assists companies in adapting all the challenges of globalization or economic upheaval, expanding consumer expectations and the related differences. In effective supply chain management also assists companies in minimizing the waste or driving out the cost and achieving efficiencies throughout the supply chain process. Right now, coming to the supply chain management goals. So, you know that every firm strives to match supply and demand in a very timely fashion with the most efficient use of resources. So here we are with some of the important goals of supply chain management. The first one is partners work collaboratively at different levels. Here supply chain partners work collaboratively means at different levels to maximize the resource productivity, number one, and then to construct the standardized processes across the entire supply chain, then to remove the duplicate efforts and minimize the inventory levels. This is how it collaboratively works at different levels. Then minimization of supply chain expenses, which is very essential, especially when there are economic uncertainties in companies regarding their wish to conserve the capital. So in that case, it helps in minimizing the supply chain expenses. Then value creation for the customer. How? I say that cost effective and cheap products are necessary, but the supply chain managers need to concentrate on value creation, and this is how your effective. If your supply chain management is effective, then it is work in the same way. Then increased expectation of client should be matched. Exceeding, I must say that exceeding the expectations, customers' expectations are always there, and this is what a very regular phenomena, right? So exceeding the customer expectation on a regular basis is the best way to satisfy them. This is how it works. To meet customer expectations, like increase expectation of clients for higher product varieties, many times for a customized goods, sometime for off-season availability of inventory, and also for a rapid fulfillment at a cost comparable to in-store offering. This should be matched. SCM also aims to contributing to the financial success of an enterprises, right? Lastly, supply chain management aims to contributing to financial success of enterprises. This is how it is, work collaboratively by, minimizing the expenses, reducing the waste at every level. So, I must say that in addition to all the points highlighted here, it aims at leading enterprises using the supply chain to improve differentiation, then increase sales, and also to penetrate the new market. So, the objective is to drive competitive benefit and the shareholder value, right? This is how it works like. So moving further, it is how customer today is very demanding and ask for value chain. Why there is need to understand or need of this effective supply chain management, because it's a need of an hour, and due to this, because of the demanding nature of a customers and customers looking for more value, because of this very reason, the capability required for market entrance for the firms and the leadership has changed from ability to supply to ability to add more and more value to the customer. This is what the scenario at the time of COVID-19 pandemic situations, where companies are more focusing on delivering the products, right? So SCM enables the consistent delivery of service in terms of reaching the right products at the right time, at the right cost, in the right condition, I mean the quality, and to the right customer. So next is are the drivers of supply chain performance. Supply chain performance can be measured, you know, in terms of what I say that subjective as well as objective. So they are facilities, inventory. These are the major drivers. The transportation, information, sourcing, and pricing. So facilities here means the places where inventory is stored, assembled, and fabricated, right? This is how your supply chain performance can be increased or enhanced. So production sites and storage sites are the facilities contributed to the performance of supply chain management. Then inventory means the raw material, the work in progress, finished goods within a supply chain, and also the inventory policies within an organization or within these channels, right? Then transportation means the moving inventory from point to point in a supply chain. Then combination of your transportation modes and routes. When I say information here means the data and analysis regarding inventory related transportation facilities throughout the supply chain. Then potentially the biggest driver supply chain. This information is the biggest driver of supply chain performance. Right. Then sourcing here means the functions a firm performs and functions that are outsourced. There are few activities that company do perform by themselves or the organization do perform by themselves. There could be few, activities or function that companies need to outsource. So what they are outsourcing and what companies are performing internally. Pricing is another important driver, like price associated with goods and services provided by a firm to the supply chain, right? So these are how the different drivers that company need to focus upon to very much understand the performance of the supply. So I'll be talking now about reverse supply chain or a reverse logistics. So within a logistic as a whole lies the cumbersome process known as reverse logistic. Reverse logistic has long been a neglected area. However, the growing market pressures such as online retail, e-commerce. Now the customers' expectations are increasing the strain on this area of supply chain. So in order to stay competitive and even profitable, now it is crucial for the companies, especially the e-businesses or online companies, to carry out innovation in this area and adapt to shift the market demands. So, thanks to the far reaching effect, this often pushed under the rug supply chain sector. As anybody who is involved in management or entrepreneurship can benefit by becoming very familiar with reverse logistics. How come? Like reverse logistic comprises of the sector of supply chain that process anything returning inwards. It is from it is like a backward movement or traveling backward through the supply chain. So this is the reason it is named as a reverse logistic, because your logistic or your supply chain moves from supplier end to manufacturer, then to distributor, then to retailer, then to the ultimate customer. But this moves in a backward direction, like from customer to the inventory, then to the retailer, then to the distributor, manufacturer. This is how it is. There could be several reasons. So let us talk some reverse logistics examples. So there could be the reasons like return of goods by customers in case of some malfunction of a product, return of unsold goods by distributors as well due to contract term, like in case of your perishable goods, reuse of packaging many a times, refurbishment of goods like in case of furnitures or electronics as well, repairs and maintenance as per the guarantee agreements, remanufacturing of goods from returned or if in case of a defective items, even the selling of goods to a secondary market like OLX are doing in response to returns of overstocking, recycling and disposable of end of life goods, like you are returning your old vehicle, and existing and growing market dynamics such as higher customer return rates and a need for recycling and reuse, which are increasing the occurrence of these instances of reverse logistics. So this here how you can measure the 5 R's of reverse logistic. Here you can see the returns and exchanges are one thing. Then you have reselling and returns, right? Repairs, recycling and disposable, and the replacements, right? Now coming to inbound and outbound logistics, another area. So this is how your inbound and outbound logistic works and it look likes. So you have suppliers, manufacturers. This is how your logistic inbound logistic is, which is actually termed as a material management, whereas the physical distribution from distributor to retailers to end users is termed as a outbound logistic. And here in this diagram on a slide, you can see there is a flow of good, there is a flow of information, there is a flow of money as well. So inbound logistic brings supplies or materials into a business, while outbound logistics deal with moving goods and products out to the customers, and both focus heavily on the transportation of the goods. But inbound is all about receiving, while outbound is focusing on the delivery. It's a simple concept and very, you can visualize how it works in a business. So let's discuss few of the differences between inbound logistic and outbound logistic. So if I talk about the definition, the influx of raw material and parts from suppliers to the manufacturer. So in a very simple word, inbound means inward, whereas outbound means outward. So outward movement of final goods from the company to the end user is known as outbound, and it is related to inbound is related to material management and procurement, whereas outbound logistic is more related to customer service and the channel of distribution. So inbound is more related to supply, whereas outbound is more related to the demand. Right? It focuses on deployment of resources and raw material within the manufacturing plant, whereas outbound logistic is very much focusing on movement of finished goods or product from the business to the final customers. The interaction point of view from inbound logistic is between supplier and the firm, and interaction is between the firm and the customer in case of your outbound logistic. So inbound logistic, the key relationship is between supplier, vendor, and the distributors, whereas in an outbound logistic, the key relationship is between the distributor, wholesalers, retailer, and the ultimate customers. Right, now coming to the Bullwhip effect. So again, Bullwhip effect is another concept or a phenomena related to supply chain. Right, it is describing in terms of fluctuations in demand. Right, so Bullwhip effect is a concept for explaining inventory fluctuation. Here on a slide, you can see how you give a whip to a rope, and how it goes from customer to retailer to distributor into manufacturer. So one has to visualize this entire phenomena, right? So it's inventory fluctuation. It is a form of an inventory fluctuation or insufficient asset allocation as a result of demand changes as you move further up the supply chain. So as such, upstream manufacturer often experience a decrease in forecast accuracy as the buffer increases between the customer and the manufacturer. Right? So it is a small fluctuation that fluctuations in demand at the retail level, and it can cause progressively large fluctuation in demand at the wholesaler, distributor, or a manufacturer and a raw material supplier level. So as you go back, so the effect is named after the physics involved in cracking a whip. So when a person holding a whip snaps their wrist, the relatively small movement causes the wave pattern to increase, in a chain reaction. So in a supply chain management, customers, suppliers, manufacturers, sale people all have only partial understanding of this demand and direct control over only part of the supply chain. But each influences the entire chain with their forecasting inaccuracies, right? And this is because of the inaccuracy in this entire chain. So every industry has its own unique supply chain, inventory placements, complexities. However, after analyzing the Bullwhip effect and implementing improvement steps, inventories in the range of 10 to 30% can be reduced, and 15 to 13% reduction in instances of stock out situation and missed customer orders can be achieved. So there are some ways to minimize the Bullwhip effect, like accept and understand the Bullwhip effect. Majority of, I would say, the industry players are not able to understand the kind of Bullwhip effect in their supply chain is having. The first and the most important step towards improvement is to recognize the presence of Bullwhip effect. There are many companies who fail to acknowledge the high buffer inventories exist throughout the supply chain, right? So a detailed stock analysis of the inventory Points from store to raw material supply will help uncover the ideal excess inventories. Then improve the inventory planning process. This is one way of minimizing this effect. So inventory planning is a careful mix of historical trends for seasonal demand, forward looking demand, and a new product launches, and discontinuation of older product as well. So safety stock setting and minimum or maximum stock range of each inventory point need to be reviewed and periodically adjusted. Then improve the raw material planning process. This is one way. Purchase manager generally tend to order in advance and keep high buffers of raw material to avoid disruption. The raw material planning needs to be directly linked to the production plan, right? So production plan needs to be released sufficiently in advance. Then collaboration and information sharing between the managers. There might be some inter-conflicting targets between purchasing managers and the production managers, or the logistic and the sales manager. So giving more weightage to common company objective and performance evaluation will improve the collaboration between the different departments. Then optimize the minimum order quantity and offer stable pricing. This could be one way. Like certain products have high minimum order quantity for end customers, resulting in overall high gaps between the subsequent orders. So lowering the minimum order quantity to an optimal level, this can help provide, create smoother order patterns, right? So these are some ways how. So I hope I'll be able to make you understand what supply chain management is, what are the drivers of supply chain, how supply chain management can be effectively used, and it can be more effective for the businesses to grow, and what reverse logistic is, inbound and outbound logistic is, what Bullwhip effect, and how one company or one can minimize this Bullwhip effect. This is all we have discussed in the session. That's all for the day. Thank you very much.